Hello and welcome back. In our last video, we saw that our gameplay is pretty much fully operational, which is awesome. We've done a lot of work up to this point. To be fair, we've learned a ton, I think, in the setup of this game, so I'm pretty happy with what we are accomplishing here. So one of the last things we have to do is reset our player upon game over. And so we got to do that on the client side and on the server side. We got kind of a place where we got to do it a little bit of both. So one of the first things I think we have to do is very important. On our client side, I'm going to scroll down to our games update method. So I'm going to scroll down to our games update method. If you look here, we have if self.roundtime is equal to 0. We should have stopped the game, and we didn't do it in our last video. The time just kept going to negative. So the reason why I think that was happening is self.roundtime, I believe, is a string at this point because we received it from a JSON object. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply cast this as an integer. So we're going to cast that time as an integer, so now we can do a proper comparison. And let's test this. I'm going to go over to my server, and let's just change our settings. Round time will be 2 seconds, and players will be just 1. So we can just test it. And we'll see if our flags change and if our status message changes as well. So let's test this out. Hopefully that will fix that issue. All right, so here is our game window. I press enter, I can move, and I can't move anymore, and it says game over. Press enter to play again. So that has helped out a ton. Perfect. So now if we notice here, our status message says press enter to play again. So we are prompting the user to hit enter. That is a Pygame event, and we know that we check for events in our main game loop. So if I scroll down to my main game loop, let's see where we're processing our Pygame events. Right here is our main game loop. Here we're emptying the event queue, and we're checking to see if the user has pressed a key and if that key is enter. Well, this is really similar to what we did when we wanted to ready the game. In fact, right now, a lot of the things are the same. If you think our player is waiting right now, we had set the is waiting flag to true, and we have our total number of players in the game. So how are we going to distinguish this state where we're resetting the game versus where we are readying the game upon like the game first starting up? Well, if you recall, we have a Boolean flag for our game called isActive. IsActive is false right here when you first start up because the game isn't actually running. So we'll use that flag to trigger a reset. So we'll check if my player.isWaiting and my game. Remember, we're outside of our game class now, so we'll call things my game and my player. They're outside here. We'll say my game.isActive. So that means the game has started. It is active, but now the player is waiting, which means a round has ended. We're going to call the game objects my game.reset_game. We'll call the game's reset. So let's actually go write this reset method right now. So I'll scroll up to the game objects. All right, we're in the game object. 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 Here it is. Here is the game object's reset game method. So let's just quickly talk a little bit about what we need to do in our reset game method. Well, first, let's reset our clock. So we know the clock got down to 0. We'll reset it to our round time constant variable, the starting time that we got from our server when Pygame initialized. So we'll do self.roundTime is equal to round time. Next, we were keeping track of the winning player and the high score. Well, we're going to have a new round, so let's reset those to 0. So we'll do self.winning player is equal to 0 and self.high score, oops, no capital S, high score is equal to 0. Awesome. Next, let's reset the player. Okay, so we're saying, hey, it's time to reset the game. Well, we've got a player that is in the game that probably needs to be reset. So we'll say reset the player. And why don't I I'll put some little stats here. I'll say reset the game and reset the player. So the player has its own reset method. We'll call it here. So we'll say self.player. We're inside of our game object. So to get the player, we do self.player, and we're going to call its reset player method. So let's go write the reset player method of the player class on the client side right now. So here's our player class. If I scroll down, you can see our reset method right here. So what exactly do we need to reset on the client side? Well, we're going to want to put the player back in its starting position. So we'll say self.x is equal to self.startingx. So we'll grab its starting x value, and we'll do the same thing for self.y is self.starting underscore y. And then we'll update our coordinate. So we'll say self.coord is equal to, as a tuple, our x position, our y position, and this is, remember, this is going to help us draw our rectangles, draw our recs to the screen. So this is where we're starting, x, y, and then how wide? Self.size. How tall? Self.size. Wonderful. Another thing that we should update when we reset the player is update our Boolean flags. So if we are resetting the player, it means the user has hit enter to play again. So we are no longer waiting. So self.isWaiting is going to equal false. We're not waiting anymore. We are ready to play. We're just waiting for everybody else to get ready. So we'll say self.isReady equals true, but we're not playing yet. So we'll make sure self.isPlaying is false. And then let's update our status message. So self.status message is equal to ready ... waiting for other players. All right, great. So that's all set. So now let's head back to the reset method of our game. So let's go back to our game's reset method now that the player's reset method is complete. All right, so here is our game's reset method. And so we've reset the player. So what we now need to do is send the updated player status over to the server. And we have a method. We have our sendPlayerInfo method that's already written that will do this. I'm just going to pause the video. I just got to cough for 1 second. Oh, that was much better. I didn't want to cough directly into my microphone. So after we've reset the player, we're going to send the new player's information over to the server. So we'll say send updated status to the server. And so we'll say self.send player info, and our sendPlayerInfo method will build a dictionary with the new coordinates and the new flags, and it will ship it off to our server. Perfect. Now, one of the things we'll just say here, and the last thing that we'll do in our reset game method, the server will now know that our player is ready. But if you recall, the server will wait to get confirmation that all players are ready. And once it has it, it will send information back over to the client, where their isPlaying flag is then set to true. So we need to monitor for that incoming message. And so we're going to do it in a thread. So we'll say monitor for the start of the game from the server. Okay, so we'll call this start thread, and we'll say threading.thread. And what do we want to target here? Well, I think we got a start game function. Yeah, we got a start game method right here. Let's target our start game method, which is going to receive that player info message, and if the player's isPlaying flag is true, it's going to trigger the game to start back up. So that should work nicely. We'll say start. Oh, I can't forget that self keyword. So self.startGame. I made that mistake before too. I'm making a lot of mistakes, similar mistakes. And so now that we've got this thread, let's start the thread. So we'll say start thread.start. Start thread.start. Okay, perfect. So now when we want to restart, as soon as everyone agrees, we change our player flags back to be playing. And so right now, if we try this at the end of the game, is my server still set to be just 1 second? Yeah, okay, cool. I'll put 2 players in so we can actually see it a little bit better maybe. If we run the server, all right, let's run some clients. Client 1. All right, perfect. We'll run client 2. All right, perfect. Client 1, client 2, press enter to play, press enter to play. Whoa, so much fun. The game's going to end. Okay, so now the game is over, and so we're prompted to press enter. And so when I press enter, let's see what happens. It says ready, waiting for other players, ready for waiting for other players, and that looked pretty darn good. Game over, game over. All right, hey, all right, enter, enter. Oh, we still have a red background. That's not good. So we have to do some resetting. If you notice, scores are not resetting. So there's a little bit I think we still need to do on the server side when it comes to resetting our game. So let's head over to our server side right now and let's take a look at what we need to do. Okay, so on the server side, I think we've got a reset player method and a reset game method that we're going to look at both of these. So let's start with the players method. It's super easy. So the reset player method, all we need to reset is the player's score, right? We saw that when the game ended and we had points, those points were still on the game board. We don't want that to happen. We want the scores to go back to 0. So inside reset player, we'll just simply say self.score is equal to 0. And that's on the server end. That's easy. Perfect. So now let's scroll down to our game objects reset method. So reset game. Here we go. Reset game. I think we got to do a little bit more to reset the game here. So inside of reset the game, the first thing we'll say is we'll reset the game. And so what information over here on the server side do we have to reset? Well, we've got a round time, and if you recall, I'm just going to put this here so we know where we are at. If I just scroll down a little bit, I think it's in process game state. Our round time, we keep decrementing it, so it gets lower and lower and lower. When we reset the game, let's set it back to whatever the round time of the game is set by the server. So self.round time is equal to round time. And then let's also set the high score in the winning player back to 0. So we'll say self.high score equals 0 and self.winning player equals 0. I paused the video because I was like, this doesn't make sense. High score and winning player are not over here on our server. We never defined them. Those are defined in our client's game. I'm so sorry. I was getting confused here. If we go over to the client game, you see we have high score and winning player over here. We don't need to define these as 0. We can get these out of here. All we really need to do to reset the game is simply set our round time back to whatever that constant value is, like 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 50 seconds. And what we'll do is I'll also, in here, I'll reset the player by saying I've got the player right here. So we'll do player dot reset player. Now, the question is, with the reset player and the reset game methods complete, where do we want to call them? So we just want to call them on the server side when we want to reset the game on the server. And so we're going to do that in our ready game method. So I'm just going to scroll up. Here's ready game right here. And so we won't reset the game as soon as the game is over, because when the game ends, I want the message to say, game over, press enter to play again. I want the player to be able to see the results of the game, so I want them to see the scores and who won as they're deciding if they want to play again. However, once they hit enter to play again and pass that information over to the server, and that information is received right here, then and only then will we reset our game on the server side, essentially wiping the score and repositioning our players. So it's going to be right here that I'll say reset the game. So we'll call self.reset game, and that will reset our game and it will reset our player. If you notice though, reset game, it needs a player to be passed in, so we'll just pass in the player that is attached to the thread that this is running on. So we'll pass in player right here. Okay, so if we test it out now, I think everything should work. So let's actually change, I'm going to change some of my settings here. And let's see. I'm going to change it for 4 clients. So we'll do 4 players. We'll give it a full test. And I'm just going to change the room size so everything fits a little bit nicer here. We'll do 40. Round time will be, we'll do 25 seconds. All right, so I'm going to run the server. All right. And now let's get 4 clients to connect, and let's see if every feature of our game is working. All right, so here is my first window. Looks good. We'll run my second window. they keep opening up on my second monitor. I don't know why. Here's my third client connecting. All right, that looks great. And here is my fourth client connecting. All right, so now we got all four colors. Let's just see. I'll press enter on each one. All right, there we go. And let's see if we have ready, waiting for other players, waiting for other players, waiting for other players, waiting for other players. Okay, and so yellow is moving. I'm going to have yellow collide. All right, the screen looks great. Let's switch to blue. Let's text blue. All right, it's a tie game, so no one's winning. Blue takes the lead. Awesome. Let's test green. Green collides. It's a tie game, so no one's winning. Green's in the lead. And then let's just quickly spam some red points. It's a tie game, and red comes in for the lead right here. So that worked pretty nice. Now, if we look, when we got to 0, we get the game over. So now let's check to see if our reset's going to work. It says game over, press enter to begin. All of our scores are still present. So when I press enter, all right, we're reset there. We're reset there. We're reset there, and when we're ready, everything goes back to 0, and we can replay the game again. So this is pretty fun. I mean, it's fun in the sense that I have to handle every single client here, which is kind of difficult. But it's neat that we're seeing all of these changes locally on one machine. So who do we want to win this one? Let's let blue win. I'm a fan of blue. Let's let blue win. All right, and so there we are. Game over. Press enter to play again. So, wow, I'm super happy with and super proud of how this game has turned out. I just think it's cool that we can write a game that our friends and family can play with us. Of course, if we want that to happen, we have to give them the client script, make sure they have Python and Pygame installed, and that they know our public IP address. And of course, on our end, we have to make sure that we have static IPs and port forwarding set up on our router, which really I've already done for this machine that I'm on here at my local IP address of 192.168.1.7. So I think the last thing that I have to do now is put this game to the official test. I'll get 3 or 4 people, and I'll have them in other houses, and I'll try to have them connect from their own home over the public network through my public IP to my server, and we'll give it an official play test video. And I think I will do that in our last video here, and it's probably going to be the final video that I have for you. So I will see you then.